So, percents. Percents are really kind of like fractions, or really kind of like ratios. We've been doing ratios for a few chapters, agreed? So really percents is just going to be kind of like one little step beyond what we've been doing in the last couple of chapters. So if you're feeling pretty confident about ratios and proportions and that stuff, percents is going to be really similar. So percents, I'm just going to say equals a ratio. And when you say so say you get your test grade back and you have a 92%. That means you got 92 out of 100, right, agreed? So really when we're talking about a ratio, you could say 92% equal, actually I guess I have this right here, 25%, but that's terrible for a test grade. But that's going to be 25 out of 100, agreed?
Yeah.
And do you remember when we did that 25 out of 100, when we wrote a number, then another number, where would the 25 go, before the colon or after? Before. Remember we were trying to take scales, like scales for maps? And we always gave you a scale, something like this, and I tried getting you, the first step is just write it like that. Does that look familiar?
Yeah.
So it's really kind of that same thing again, just kind of in the opposite direction. So 25% is 25 over 100, or 25 colon 100. And if we had done the 92%, going back to that test grade thing, it's saying that you got 92 out of 100 right on the test. Or if you wanted to, you could go on and write it this way. So far, we good? Not too confusing or anything? Okay. Now, going back this other way, what percent is 3/5? Well, do you agree, when we had this 25%, that was this number here up above 100? Or 92%, that's that number above 100? So if we were to take the 3/5, we really want to figure out, if we're trying to figure out the percent, do you agree we need this number right up here? That number right there, whatever out of 100 is the percent? Looking for nods or some sort of a, yes, this makes sense. Oh, teacher of mine. So, okay. But, so we're just looking for something over 100. But in this last chapter, instead of putting that hashtag thing up there, we just put the letter X. If you can find X, you just found the percent that 3/5 is? And you've been doing that for 2 chapters, right? So we do, perfect. So we do 5 times X, cross multiply. 5 times X, so this there, equals 3 times 100. And I'm going to show all the steps, but by now a lot of you guys are maybe shortening it up a little bit. So 5X equals 300. If we want to find X, we so we just cross multiply and divide. And that gives us X equals 60. So when we get this question that says what percent is 3/5, we know the answer is 60%. Because just like before, the percent was always the number that's over 100. Percent is a number that's over 100. Make sense?
Yep.
So it's really just a new application of what we've been doing. This next one I'm giving you a little different format. I'm saying the ratio 3:25 is what percent? Well, whenever you see something like this, what's your teacher begging you to do?
3. Do it like the first, the 25.
Perfect. 3 over 25 like that? Equals X over 100? We could cross multiply and divide. That's the way I should teach it. But does anybody look at that and say, oh, I know the answer has to be
300. No, 200.
25,000
how do I get from 25 to 100?
times 4.
How do I get from 3 to X?
Times by 3.
Do you agree? If you multiply by the same thing, the numerator and denominator, remember filling in those tables?
Oh, yeah.
Equal data tables?
Oh, I remember those.
So X has to be
Oh, those.
what number?
4. No,
Right.
sorry. Not 12.
12. So the final answer, 3:25, the ratio 3:25 is what percent?
12%.
12%. But if you're looking at that and you're like, what? You could totally go back and do the cross multiply and divide thing. You could say 25 times X. So you don't have to write this by any means, but you could say 25 times X, this times this, equals 3 times 100. I'm just going to write equals 300. But now if I divide both sides by 25, a wise person would guess I'm going to end up with X being 12, same as we did the shorter way. So you can cross multiplying and dividing always works. Works with decimals, works with nasty numbers, always works. But if you can look at them and be like, oh, dude, times 4, it'll save you some time. But it's totally up to you. Yes, sir?
Can we get the answer?
Yeah, Brady brings up an awesome point, and that's maybe even the fastest way.
Oh, yeah.
Except for if you do this, okay. So Brady is saying, can't we just do top number divided by bottom number? Yes, but if you do 3 divided by 25, what does that give you?
That's
Point.
point.
But
then
point
times it by
one.
100.
So 3 divided by 25 gives me 0.12. So I'm going to try
Times
to,
it by 100.
so 3 divided by 12 equals, I'm sorry, 3 divided by, I have the answer in my head. 3 divided by 25 equals 0.12. So then, exactly, with your figuring out your test percentage, then you'd multiply it by 100, which just moves the decimal point 2 places. We're going to do more of that this chapter, and you get 12%.
Will that always work?
It'll always work. The key with this way, though, is when you get this number, you have to remember to go and move your decimal point 2 places. You have to do that step, or else you'll get the wrong answer. And it's always 2 spaces. It's always multiplied by 100. And we'll do more of that this chapter for sure. That's coming up in the next few sections.
Okay.
All right. Little brown bats spend 11/20ths of hibernation in light sleep, 2/5 of hibernation in deep torpor, which is complete inactivity. Compare these numbers using percents. Well, 11 over 20. I guess which way do you guys want to do it? You want to cross multiply divide? Do you want to set up the proportion? Okay. So 11 over 20 equals x over 100. Ooh, what do I multiply 20 by to get up to 100?
4, 5.
5, yep. So the answer is going to be 55 over 100, or 55%. Agreed?
Yeah.
Since Dorian did say cross multiply divide, I probably should show the, so it'd be 20 times x equals 11 times 100.
Ouch.
20x equals 1100, or 1100. Divide by 20, divide by 20. X is 55. Either way, you get 55%. Okay, so little brown bats, they spend 55% in light sleep. And then 2/5 of hibernation. We want to change that to a percentage. Perfect, yep. So we have times 20. So times 20. Nice, so 40%. So x equals 40, so we have 40%. So they have 55% light sleep, 40% of this torpor. You want to hear an interesting bat thing I learned on the 8th grade trip last week?
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks ago? That they have these brown bats that eat like tens of thousands of insects a night, so we like bats. They eat mosquitoes. They're getting this like white fungus on their nose area, which what it does is it keeps them from spending as much time in this torpor. So they're waking up at night when they're hibernating, or waking up during the winter when they're hibernating, and then they're using more energy because they're not in this like complete inactivity. They may be flying around some or whatever. So then they use up all their energy stores, all their stores of fat or whatever their body's using to stay alive. So then they're coming out of hibernation earlier. So they're coming out of hibernation in like March as opposed to May or maybe February. So then what ends up killing them?
The moving around.
Bears. What?
What do bats eat?
Mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes and insects. Are there a whole lot of them around in February?
Nope.
Nope.
There's no food to
So
hunt.
basically they die of starvation because there's nothing for them to eat. So, yeah, isn't that sad? So, okay, but you guys feel, I showed you maybe more, and I showed there's like 3 ways to do it. Latch onto 1 or 2. Make sure you at least know the cross multiply divide, 'cause you can always fall back on that if the others come short.